Trained by day, Kyle Wigginton podcast by night, all day.
Bobby Swan.
That's me.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast, dude.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, it's going to be different for me too today because I'm used to having the microphones in front of my face, so it kind of like shields you a little bit from the camera. So today having these new microphones is going to be kind of weird.
Well, if I turn this way, I don't even see the camera, so it's not like I'm even it's just us talking.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I would actually like to start the like how Joe Rogan does with a 3-camera setup. Do you ever watch his podcast?
Not a lot with Joe Rogan, but I mean I'm a little familiar with his.
Yeah. Do you want to listen to podcasts?
I do watch a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
I follow a lot of people. Most of it's political or cultural and stuff like that. I watch some of Joe Rogan. I feel like, or historical. I feel like sometimes I'm overloaded with stuff. There's so many podcasts out there. It's hard to follow.
There's so much information out there these days.
Yeah.
These kids these days, I don't understand how they're even going to comprehend the world because there's so much going on, especially now with AI. Mm-hmm. The AI is making so much new information every single day that it's hard to even stay on top of things.
Yeah, but us being the people that we are, a lot of times we spend more time making people's boobs bigger with AI than we do to actually further ourselves. You know, growing up with our age, we were thinking like Terminator with AI.
Yeah.
And now I get to see Natalie Portman with bigger breasts than she actually has.
Do you mess with AI any?
No, I never really got into a lot of that.
Dude, I've gotten heavy into it. Most recently, I got into music. I don't make music at all. I'm not musically inclined at all. It's one of the only art forms that I don't really do. But this AI program is called Suno.ai. It's so freaking amazing. So one of my friends sent it to me. You know Tyler Riddle?
I know the name.
Okay. Yeah, he also lives in Wynn. But he sent it to me a few months ago, and I tried it the first time, and the AI program sucked. Like, it was horrible. It was like a 9-year-old kid making music. And then 3 months later, I tried it again, and holy crap, dude. The music that it's coming out with is amazing.
So you create your own thing and it does it for you.
Yeah, you pretty much, you type in like a paragraph of like what you want the song to be about, and you type in like the type of song you want. So I've been making a lot of trap music. Love trap music. But yeah, dude, the music's so freaking good.
It's crazy. I wonder if one day we'll be the only, like I guess my fear of AI would be like one day we're kind of obsolete for anything.
That's a good question. Like,
actors, I mean, our special effects are getting so well now with video games and everything else. Do we even need actors? Do we even need writers? Do we just have someone with an idea or a fragment of an idea?
Well, that's the reason that the whole film industry shut down a while ago, because everyone was up in arms about this, because they were actually trying to get the likeness of actors. So they want you to go in, they want to scan your body and take your voice, and they want to just go, okay, go away. And then let AI do all the rest.
And I feel like we're going to miss something in that if that ever does kind of take place. I mean...
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that with the music that I've been making. Because I have a bunch of musician friends, and there's something that they do that's different than the AI, but it's like how long before that human essence is able to be mimicked by AI?
Yeah, I mean, but will there always be like a lack there of?
That's what I'm saying. Like I don't know. I think it's getting really good.
I feel like it is, but at the same time, there's going to be what are we going to do for a concert at that point? What are we going to do for interaction socially to get together? Are we going to sit around a computer and listen to? I mean, well, I can create something beautiful now with AI, but I mean, are you going to watch me type it into the computer and we all just sit there and listen to it, or at what point did this stop where we stop interacting with each other and having a podcast where we talk, and then
maybe it'll free us up to do more of this.
And it could potentially, give us. I hope the benefits do outweigh the cons.
I'll tell you that I think there's one profession that's not going to go away, and that's the one that you have.
Well, at times it feels like like we're trying to push away from it, but yeah, being a police officer, it's definitely needed.
Yeah, well, I think that the more like complacent people, or the more, what's the word I'm looking for here? The less people have to do in the world, the less jobs we have, the more jobs the AI takes away. People are going to be looking for other things to do, and a lot of times it's going to be nefarious things.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why culturally I like to see people tie together more. That's why I think a lot of institutions that bring people together are very important. Especially see it like being a police officer, when you see people that don't have the positive social connections that they need, that they look into nefarious social connections, or they get influenced so easily by somebody that's that's not that, a positive influence on their life, because they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have anything to do, especially small towns. I mean, that growing up in a small town, it's not much to do in a small town.
Yeah.
And what little social connections we have are very, very limited. And it's easy to the boredom. And like I said, like with AI, if we aren't creating these works of art ourselves and putting the time, the practice into it, we're losing the sense of worth, for one, because we don't get to sit back after that hard work of putting something into it and seeing the beautiful result of it. Mm-hmm. And then we miss that social interaction that it takes to go take guitar lessons, for example, that you're taking with somebody and you get that conversation and stuff.
So do you think there's an answer for that?
I think
because AI is coming.
Yeah, I think that we've lost a lot lately. I think the big boost in AI, as well as like with COVID, with the shutdowns that COVID happened, churches shutting down, public libraries shutting down, everything was shutting down that drew people together, and we're forcing a lot of people at home. A lot of people never came back out of it. Yeah. You see a lot of people working from home now, and we're such a social creatures that we've got to learn to socialize again. We got to be out and work, because socialization is work, and we're meant to work.
Do you see effects of COVID, like the shutdowns and stuff, in your work?
Oh, absolutely. You see that. You see businesses that went out, and that's less jobs that people are having. So you're with that as a higher crime rate. Again, people get desperate. People have more free time on their hands to do things that aren't productive, and then you see it. School shutting down when school's not in. Who's influencing these kids? Mm-hmm. Other kids, and or neighbors or somebody and they're not being guided as they should be. And so what are they doing? They're out breaking into things, or they're out getting themselves in different tighter situations.
Well, I was talking to a guy a while back, and he was saying that the shutdowns caused a lot of mental instability.
And I agree with that 100%. I think of that as again, because a lot of what I've come to understand myself, or trying to understand lately, is the social impact on us mentally. That's why I am a believer of church. I talked to you before this, I joined the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And so I have a lot of beliefs on how important a church structure is, and how hard it is when you do take that away from people. You take a church as a family. You look at it as, this is a building that I go to with a like-minded group of people. And with this like-minded group of people, I have obligations to meet, to stay with this like-minded group of people.
What are some of the obligations?
Well, like with your family. Say that you go out and you do your family wrong, or you do something wrong. You have those consequences you meet with that family. Your parents or friendships or relationships is no different to me than any other friendship or relationship. If I go out and I act in a way, and my parish holds me accountable to that, or say that I acted in such a negative way, I'm not going to fit in with that group.
Right.
That's positively influencing my life anymore.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is I'm going to grow away from that group.
Sorry.
And it's like any other relationship, and that's where I feel that social ties are so important, because we're meant to work.
Yeah.
We're not creatures that species that does not meant to work at all. And that's very negative on people. With the shutdowns, that happened as well. People weren't working. Mm-hmm. Well, what sense of worth do I have? Take Genesis, for example, with the Bible, with Adam and Eve. They're in paradise, and most people know that beginning of the story. It's very, very elementary. Mm-hmm. What were they doing in paradise? They're working. So even in paradise, we were designed to work. So with my relationship with my wife, if I don't put in the work that's needed, I'm not going to have a good relationship. If I don't put the work that's needed at work, I'm not going to have a good working relationship. I'm not going to have a job.
Yeah.
And then I don't have a sense of worth. At what point do I just shut down?
It's very interesting that you say that about church, that it's giving you a community. Because I do find that community is, or that we're losing community with the invent of the internet. Mm-hmm. And people just aren't connected anymore.
No, we were so easily connected that we
were not connected.
Not connected.
Yeah.
You know, Facebook is now a town square, whereas we would meet to talk about these things. And you and I grew up pre-Facebook. You know, we kind of.
I deleted mine.
Yeah, I need to delete mine. I see so much negative stuff all the time that.
Wait, so they make it so hard for you to delete too?
It's addicting.
But no, it's hard for you to delete because you can't even find the delete button. And then after you find the delete button, they still make you wait 28 days before they delete it.
Oh, to make sure that you actually want to do this.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That opportunity. It's like a drug.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like here, I'm going to lay this drug right here, and in 28 days, I'll take it away from you.
Yeah.
If you decide not to use it.
That's what they do, yeah.
Oh.
And I kept it for a while just because I could stay connected with people I went to college with and stuff. Finally, I was like, dude, I don't even talk to these people. So fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah, half the Facebook people I have friends on Facebook, I don't know them.
Yeah.
I'll see them pop up every once in a while. I'm like, I don't know where we've ever interacted for me to have added you on Facebook. Yeah. I have no idea who you are. And then we don't. I don't interact with anybody on Facebook. I post some pictures of my son and my wife every once in a while. Yeah. And then I move on about life. And then I mostly aimlessly scroll. I'll sit there and find myself watching a movie, and I've spent half that movie just not looking at nothing or doing anything.
See, I'm that with Instagram. I need to get rid of my Instagram, but it's that drug, man. I'm addicted to it.
It's 100% a drug.
But I figured out a way to manipulate my Instagram algorithms. So used to I would just see like pictures of tits and asses all day long, but now I've manipulated it to where I actually see like scientific things. It's like new discoveries and things like that. And I think you have to, if you can manipulate your algorithms to like show you stuff like that, these tools can actually be used for good.
Oh, absolutely, they can be. That negative aspect there, because sex sells. It's forced every time you scroll. You say you look at scientific discoveries. Well, then the next thing you know, somewhere on an ad, if you sit just long enough of something negative, it's going to be flooding you all over again, because that's essentially what sells.
Well, they know at core we're animals. Yeah. So, animal instincts are going to kick out if you don't like rise above them.
Yeah. And that's where, like, again, like I was talking about, like the church, you know, or family values that hold me accountable to rise above those things. I can't do that myself. I'm not a person. I'm not strong enough as a person. I have so many flaws as a human being that I have to rely on somebody else to hold them accountable, whether it's a friend, a wife, a church member, a coworker. And if we're not interacting in the society as we should, what keeps us grounded?
But what makes you think you don't have the ability to keep yourself in check? Well, I think you do. I think that's a learned skill as well.
It is a learned skill, but where do we learn it from?
I think that's where you can. So this is why I don't, because I tell people I don't have religion. I don't have religion. I don't have organized religion. Okay. I understand the community aspect of it. I think that's beautiful the way you actually put that there. But when it comes to actually the religious teachings of it, I turned away from it because I was like, no one can actually explain to me what this is talking about. But then one day I was looking up the science of yoga. Someone gave me a book. I didn't look it up. Someone gave me a book, and I started reading this book, and I couldn't put it down. This was like the Bible to me. Okay. Like it was just beautiful. It was like teaching you about the human body and about like what in Christianity they would call the Christ consciousness, about how to like bring this about. And I think that's what all these religions are talking about, is how to elevate yourself to this this level of Christ consciousness. But I don't think that the churches around here actually teach it that way. I think you have to look at like Hinduism and the way they taught yoga in Hinduism, which the yoga is not just the yoga that we know, stretching. Like yoga is like an entire like lifestyle, like meditation and things like this. That's where I found, I guess, my peace. Was in meditating and in doing these teachings in this book called The Science of Yoga.
I agree with, okay, so I started out as a Protestant. I was raised in a Methodist church. I attended a Baptist church, attended a Pentecostal church.
So what are the differences in all of them?
Well, obviously the Protestant and Catholicism have a pretty good divide there, where the Protestants branched away from Catholicism.
See, I don't know anything about any of these.
Okay, so Protestants, say like a Baptist church. Okay. Take that for example. So a lot of their beliefs are founded on Scripture alone, that like the individual and their Bible together is all you really need. The church is somewhat important, but not really. And so there's a big argument between Protestants and Catholics about, like, say, works versus not works. You know, faith alone in Jesus Christ gets you to heaven. Well, Protestants believe that Catholics put too much emphasis on works. Well, when I was going to Protestant churches, one thing that I noticed I did, and I've seen others I felt were doing too, I go in there and what do I get out of this? So I go into a church building and I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'll listen to his message. What do I get out of his message? Sit back, I listen to the band play or they sing songs, did I get a good feeling out of this? And I sat back and I thought, I was like, well, it's not for me. If I believe that there is a higher power as God, and I believe that Jesus Christ, as God, came to earth and died for my sins, and he asks of me to worship him, why am I going to the structure, this building, and thinking, what do I get out of it? It's like my wife, if she asked me to show up somewhere, and if I'm really not that into her, what do I get out of showing up? But if I know that if I do show up, and I consistently show up to her, and I give her what she needs at the times that she asks, then I know my relationship with her is going to be stronger, so I benefit in the long run of it. And that's what a lot of churches, especially a more Protestant church for me, gave was I show up, I listen to the message, I didn't like the message. Well, what if I don't like the message? So what if I don't like the message? I'm not here for me. I'm here for God. I'm here to give God my time and to worship him. And Catholicism has a more of a standardized way of worshiping, where they have like set prayers or they have a set service. It's don't really have a big band. Now, I can't speak for all churches. My church don't really have a band. They sing kind of hymns and stuff, but a lot of it is based on me kneeling and praying to God, us praying together to God. And that I got more once I realized I took the selfishness out of it for myself, going into a building of what I got out of it. I've seen now that I get more out of it because I feel more connected, if that makes sense.
Does make you're saying you feel more connected to this God person?
I feel more connected to God. I feel like there's a higher power there. If I believe there's a higher power there, and if I feel this higher power blesses me throughout my days, and then I go into the church selflessly to what I get out of it, at what point?
Yeah, it's about you rather
than me. Then it is about that higher power.
So I think for me, whenever I think about religion, what I would like to see is that you don't worship an entity that you're never going to see. You worship you. Like, I'm worshiping you. Mm-hmm. I'm worshiping the things that are around me. So instead of trying to, do right because I'm doing right for this person, I'm just doing right because the world needs me to do right.
And I see that. I see that a lot, and I understand that concept. But at what point where do we learn to do right at? If you are my really good friends and somebody insults you or somebody I felt and I do that person wrong, am I doing right? Where do I learn the right from wrong at? When we look through history of like Genghis Khan, even in Christian denominations, where there wasn't, I hear a lot of people say, well, I don't need God to tell me to be a good person. Well, if you look at the Ten Commandments, take that for example, 3 of the most major religions in the world have the same Ten Commandments. Muslim, Judaism, and Christianity all have the same Ten Commandments, but they're vastly different for most part. Judaism and Christianity correlate with each other, but for the most part, they're vastly different. Mm-hmm. Well, why would they have that same standard of right and wrong?
For me, when I think of these things, I think of the earth as like its own organism. Mm-hmm. The earth is like one organism, and you're a small part of it. It's almost like if the earth is a cell, and you're a little piece inside of the cell that's doing its job. And where I find right and wrong is where you're getting resistance. If someone calls me a bad name and you beat them up, then you're going to get resistance because cops are going to come to you and go, you shouldn't have done that. That's resistance. That's your wrong. Granted, that is a man-made rule that we have, but that's the resistance in the time that we live in. So I think that if you're doing right, you're not getting resistance.
Well, okay. So say that I go to take a place that we would agree on, like Hitler. Okay. Everybody usually agrees with Hitler. I rise up against Hitler. I fight against Hitler. I'm going to encounter a lot of resistance. Am I in the wrong for challenging that?
I love that you brought up Hitler because I love talking about Hitler. I love talking about it because my thoughts on history is it's written by the winners. As we all know that quote, history's written by the winners. How do we know he was actually even a bad guy? We don't. We just know what history's told us. So I think that's a bad example. Can you use a more modern example of you doing something? I would say that if you go out and get drunk, you're going to have a hangover the next day. That's resistance.
Yeah.
That lets you know that you shouldn't.
An example of resistance. Yeah.
That's not benefiting your life at all. Those are the kinds of things that I mean.
But what about the alcoholic that tries to fight the being drunk?
Well, if he's an alcoholic, there's obviously some kind of thing in his life that's driving him to do these things.
Well, and then...
They're still offering resistance, though, right?
I mean, it is a form of resistance. I mean, but the functioning alcoholic who feels sick when he doesn't get drunk because...
I have a buddy like that, actually. I have a buddy like that. Like, I feel so sorry for the guy, too, because there's nothing you can do to help him.
Yeah, like my brother...
He just needs to drink.
My brother went through that. I remember I went to a ball game with him, and he got sick at the ball game because he didn't get a beer because it was too expensive.
Yeah.
And then when we got home, he drunk, he felt better.
Yeah.
You know,
but I still feel like you're getting resistance. Like, there's no way his life is the best that it could be.
No, it's not.
Like, for my buddy, what the resistance is, or the reason that he does that is because he went to war. He was in Afghanistan or somewhere, and he was just an engineer over there, but he saw his buddies get blown up and things. So that's got his mind all fucked up. So now he drinks to, like, dull that pain. There's no way you're going to get that away unless you, like, get some serious help.
Help, and I agree. I agree with that 100%. It's always been this topic we're always going to debate over as a species, and you look at history, you look at like how I know I keep going like to history and stuff, but you look at how the United States was founded. You look at a lot of our rights that we have today mention a God. You look at a Muslim country. Most of theirs is founded over a God, Allah.
Well, for me, if I was trying to, I'm not saying this is like a manipulation thing, but if I was trying to influence my peers to do something, I think that would be a good way to do it. It's to say, yo, God told me to tell you this. And I don't think the rules the church teaches are bad. I think they're great. But I just think that, like, I think you should read The Science of Yoga just to give it a shot. But I think that the way they teach religion and the way they teach you to be a human being is the same thing that the Bible teaches, but they're saying it in a way that's more that teaches you about the physical body rather than using metaphors to explain the body. So, like Jacob's ladder, for instance, in the Bible, where they're talking about it like Jacob's ladder is the spine, because there's 33 vertebrates in the spine. So when you're walking up Jacob's ladder, you're getting to the holy, I don't know the Bible the way they put it, but they're basically saying that there's this energy that's coiled up at the bottom of your spine, and they call it Kundalini energy. And they say that when it goes up the spine in a spiral pattern, you can do this by meditation techniques, that you actually raise this energy or this fluid that's in your spine up to the head, and when it gets to your head, it like secretes out, and it causes like some the corpus callosum. It causes it to connect, and that's where you get Christ consciousness. So you see, like all these Renaissance paintings of the saints, or what they are, they're saints in Renaissance paintings. They have these like glowing rings around their head, and he's saying that that's what the actual halo is. That it's not a halo like this, like we see the halo with the angels. That it's an electromagnetic halo that comes out from your head, and you radiate this. And that's what you get from this science of yoga. But the Bible's saying the exact same thing. It's just using metaphors to explain it. And we have trouble interpreting metaphors.
Oh, we do have trouble. Because you think about the denominations out there, how many there are. Yeah. I mean, just in Christianity alone, how many vast denominations there are, because we all have different interpretations of the Bible, of our beliefs in religion. And I do think a lot of it is we seek a lot of times what benefits us. Yeah, we try to make Christianity. That's where I'm mostly. My mindset is usually at. Most days is we very selfish in how can I make Christ fit for me, and then it's a big off-put to a lot of people that are out seeking something. I thought we all are seeking something, whether it's God or it's some type of understanding, because if we're not seeking that, then what are we doing as a human race? I mean, what benefits us a long life? If we live, say, 800 years, is that more beneficial than 80 years if we have nothing to look forward to later, something bigger than us?
So I think if you become Christ-like, then what you do is you seek to create an environment like Adam and Eve lived in. So you basically look at the world and you say, oh, there's a problem, let me go fix it.
And I see that point, but where does humanity, where we've really fixed a lot of problems where we haven't created?
Oh, we haven't.
More.
Yeah, we're just always creating problems. Yeah. And I think that's the real issue here is that no one actually lives Christ-like.
No.
That we're all seeing this outside source as like, I'm worshiping this rather than actually bringing it, internalizing it and going, now I'm going to go change the world for better.
Well, I guess I have to say, what do you mean by Christ-like?
I mean that I no longer see myself as like going to get these things. What I want to do is I want to change the world. Like, it's not about like, do I have the best vehicle? Do I have the best clothing on? I mean, yes, if you have a family, provide for your family. But at the same time, if you don't have a family, then just find a problem and solve it. Like there are so many people, if you live in a city like I live in, you'll find there's potholes everywhere. And these are things that taxpayers, pay money to fix, but the city just doesn't fix them. So you take a thing of asphalt out there and just dump it in the pothole, snap it down. Now you fix a pothole. You've done something good for the world. You see a homeless guy on the side of the street, like why are we not fixing these things? Like we have so many, the homeless population in New Orleans is incredible. It's huge. And I mean, I'm sure it's all going to go away by the time the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras gets here next year.
Our government's really good about hiding those kind of things.
Yeah, but I'm saying those are the problems that if people internalize this Christ-like image rather than like externalizing it, they would actually say that I am God and I'm going to go fix this problem.
I guess my view of being Christ-like will be a little different. I don't view Christ as somebody that really came to change the world or necessarily save the world. Christ came to show us that there's another world that we can reach. Because when Christ was confronted and asked, he said, "Give unto Caesar what Caesar's." When Christ was here, he said, with he said that you're poor and you're hungry will still be here. I won't be. So Christ to me wasn't necessarily, because when we look at Christ, we always think of a good person. Christ wouldn't have been seen necessarily as that.
I don't think he was a good person. I think Christ lived with the prostitutes and the bums. I think he saw humans as like being a part of him.
Well,
he's like, I'm the worst of you and the best of you.
Well, but our elementary teachings of Christ is like good person. And so when we say be a Christ, like we always say be a good person, and that's part of it, in my opinion. Yes, we want to be good people, and Christ would expect us to be good people. But at the time when he was challenging the Pharisees, they wouldn't have saw him as a good person. Like we talked about, like the pushback. He would have gotten, he got a lot of pushback, a lot of flack. You look through the Bible a lot of times, and that's why I don't look at the Bible as like a propaganda machine a bunch of times, because it doesn't paint a lot of people in the Bible as in a great light. You take David, who's seeking after God's own heart, wasn't a great person. There was a lot of things David struggled with, and it was clear in the Bible a lot of things David struggled with. And I want to make it clear, when I say Christ wouldn't have been seen necessarily as a good person, I'm not saying he wasn't good. It was the entity of good. But the Pharisees at that time and a lot of the people listening to Christ wouldn't have thought that. It wouldn't be like, he's a good person with a lot of good teachings. I didn't agree with his teaching.
Yeah, he was turning against the ruling at the time.
And so I think sometimes when we think of being a Christ-like person as necessarily being a good person, instead of, as more of Christ was telling us that there's a greater power here at play. This world will fade. This world's going to be gone. True. It's eventually going to run its course. But if you follow me, I will take you to a kingdom that's everlasting.
But what if you get to heaven and there's potholes there and there's homeless people there? Then what?
I don't know. We don't really know what's in store of heaven.
But I mean, would you try to fix the potholes and deal with the homeless people? Because at that point, you made it.
Well, and here's I guess I'll look at it because I think of a God. I see him. I don't think God ever is going to ask me what I think about things. You know, if I believe in all-knowing God, I don't think he's ever going to come to me about. That's why I don't judge people on their sins. I try really hard. I don't try to call people out on their sins. I think that's a big push on religion.
Yeah.
A big, putting off of religion. I don't think God, if he created the heaven, I go to heaven, there's homeless people and there's potholes. Well, that's the best we're going to get. Well, I mean, what are we going to do at that point? If I go to the greatest kingdom and that's there, I don't know. I have faith that that's not going to be the case. But if I get there and that's it, I mean, what else are going to do anyway?
My thing is, why don't he change it here today? Like, why would he let this kingdom have homeless people in potholes?
Well, I mean, if you follow the biblical narrative of Adam and Eve were casted outside of a paradise. They weren't taken from one paradise and put into another paradise. I told you not to eat this. This is the consequences. I told you what's going to happen. This is what you wanted. Here you go, have at it. This is you. God gives us what we want a lot of the time. We think of hell as mostly a separation from us and God. God told us, if you don't want to follow me, you don't have to follow me. That's on you. I'll give you that choice. And at the same time,
this is what the Bible says.
This is what the Bible says. This is what I believe. So
yeah.
If I was going to try to convince somebody of God, that's how I would relay it.
Yeah.
If we look at perfection all the time, we look for perfection in everything. Why won't God fix this? Why won't God fix that? I do believe that at times we are left to our own devices. God expects us to do things in his name for him, for the good of other people. Like you said, if I see a pothole, fix it, I need to fix it. With that being said, though, I mean, I don't look at the evil in the world, because evil does outshadow the good. I mean, you think about it, we're all flawed. Mm-hmm. And if you look at me as a person, if you see me as a good person, there's probably 10 people that sees me as a bad person that see my flaws that I have done.
Especially with the uniform. I'm pretty sure people,
people don't like that.
Yeah.
Especially now in this day and age, people don't like that. But I feel like we're so overshadowed with the evil, because evil is easier to see than it is the good to see. I mean, for that example, if you see me do something, you may see me as a guy that feeds the hungry every day. I'm out there feeding the hungry. Well, I may go home and be a womanizer. And at that point, the people that I'm womanizing, I'm mistreating, they're going to see me as a horrible person.
Right.
Because we're all flawed. I mean, you take everybody throughout history that's done, we find that was done something great, or we idolize or look up to, there's tons of flaws that they have.
Yeah.
So I think we get so focused on the negative a lot of time, because there is so much in our face, and the negative is a good story.
Yeah, I think even with social media these days, there's the false positives too, like the influencers that go out and give food to homeless people just so they can be on Instagram showing that they gave food to homeless people, and
then they make a bunch of views, get a bunch of money, and I think we get so bogged down with that, we get tired of it.
Yeah,
we get tired of seeing that. We get tired of seeing the fake good people. Or I say fake, but we're all, in my opinion, we're all kind of a fake good person to an extent, because we all have our shortcomings, but we're trying to do our best, to be honest. But we get exhausted with that. You get exhausted with the person that at the church, I'm not going to say a name, but it's a person I've heard of. I've heard this example say, I have the gift to call out sin. Well,
what does that say? Is that like calling people out?
That's what I would take that as.
Yeah.
Like, I've never heard a biblical teaching of calling out sin, but I have the gift of calling out sin. So we look so hard at looking at other people's flaws, like say sinfulness, and we call them on that. We get a kind of a little
people
rush.
Say that shit?
Yeah, well, I've heard it. It's been said.
Yeah.
But if you see a lot of times, say, take Facebook for example, and you see somebody that's very, very religious, very Christian person. A lot of times they do a lot, and they post a lot. It's two things they usually post. One, how everybody else is doing wrong. Or two, doomsday prepping. It's exhausting. It's very exhausting. What I want is, for my Christian faith, is for you to see me. We haven't seen each other in a long time. I want you to see me as a person that, hey, Bobby looks like he's got his stuff together. Bobby seems happier. Bobby seems well-rounded or whatever it is. And then you're like, well, what's the common denominator? Well, it's his Christian faith. That's what I want to see. And I feel that would draw more people to the church than me shouting, you need to find Jesus for the end of times because you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
That turns people off.
Yeah, I think people are definitely looking for answers. And if you're showing them that, yeah, I'm living my life the best way I can because I found this, then yeah, that's definitely the way to do it.
I feel like that. And that's why, so as you know, in me as my, that I have a deep Christian faith, then there's no sense in me telling you what I think's a sin. You would know that what's a sin, what I think's a sin, or I think's wrong. Based on that, you should have at least a fundamental understanding of what that is. So there's no point in me calling a friend or anybody else out on their sin. Now, if you come and ask me, well, we could talk about it, but I don't feel like I should call you out on that. I shouldn't say anything to you about it. I've been called to love you. I should be a safe place that you can come to and not be judged. Because again, I believe in an all-knowing God, and He's never going to ask me my opinions on judging anybody. I mean, if He would, I have a list of people that that I'd like to condemn, but He's not going to. So in that same mindset, I need to show love and have a safe place for you to come to feel love.
Dude, I think that's a beautiful way to live, and especially as a police officer. Like if you took those teachings into the whenever you put your uniform on too, which I'm hoping you do, you're a safe space for people to actually come and confide to.
Yeah, and with that being said, though, with my job, there's times I got to be that asshole I don't want to be. Can you
give me an example?
Well, if some people don't respond well to me, hey, catering to you, hey, I need you to calm down. Hey, I need you to calm down. You know that in playing sports. How many times playing a pickup game, people start fighting?
Yeah.
People are raised in a certain type.
They're emotional.
Or I see them at the worst time.
Yeah.
As a police officer, I show up to a scene. You don't call me to hang out.
Right.
You call me because some shit's going on. And you don't like it.
Yeah.
And you want to stop. Whether you're right or wrong in your opinion on what's happening, you could be the aggressor, but you still want whatever you called me for to stop, and you're in distress. Or I pull you over because you're speeding or something like that, and the interaction's going to go, well, it depends on your day, because I don't know what your day's been like. You could have just broken up with your girlfriend. You could have just got fired from the job. I have no idea. I don't know who you are. So I don't ever see people in a lot, and sometimes I have to use a forceful language or forcefulness to control the situation, because I'm there now. I have to control the situation. I'm responsible for how this situation plays out, whether I want to be or not, because you called me there. That's the uniqueness of my job, is that I get called by other people to come there, and I have to now take on that responsibility, whether I want to or not.
So do you have any horror stories that you'd like to talk about, or that you can talk about that's happened?
I don't know about horror stories. I mean, I've been doing this since 2012.
Yeah. Yeah, you were in Jonesboro for a while, and then you just recently moved to a smaller.
I came to a smaller town. Now that was kind of an eye-opening to me. Because,
what's the difference there?
Well, you hear all the time, like you think of like Dallas or a big populated town, you think, well, that's more dangerous for the cops there. Well, I've seen more things in a smaller town than I did in Jonesboro, and it's just, but it's cultural. You think of where the smaller town is located; it's in the middle of nowhere, essentially, with Forest City, Memphis, bigger cities that come through. They're going to use that smaller town as a cut through.
Oh, is that what they do?
And that's what my feelings of it are.
Yeah,
and then you have people from different backgrounds in that smaller town, because either you're raised there or you come there for some type of job fairly close. Maybe you don't want to live in Memphis, but you got to work in Memphis, so you come there. So it brings people there in that way. So you're getting different aspects of culture in that little small town, whereas like Jonesboro, it's kind of flourishing. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I'm not explaining it well, but...
Well, you probably have different police force too, different sizes. So you have to respond to everything.
I did more work at a smaller town than I did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You respond to everything there, which in Jonesboro, you probably didn't respond to every single thing that got called.
No, Jonesboro, you had,
your districts or something?
You had a district, and then you had several officers in that district, or you had an accident division, where now it's me and our friend Anna.
Yeah.
It was me and her. There would be times it was just me and her working.
Oh, wow.
And so, so we had to take on everything. But I've seen a lot of crazy things, a lot of funny things. I try to look more for the funny stories than the sad stories, honestly. Like Anna and I were talking about one day that something funny happened and her just crying, laughing because of the comedy of it. And as I've gotten older, I used to wanted the action stories. I started out, I wanted to say I did this and that, and I'd seen this. I got in these fights, I got in these foot pursuits, and now I just want to see the funny in it. I want to see because people are comical. Mm-hmm. You watch people; they're. I'm telling you, bartends.
Yeah, bartend and run a bar in New Orleans.
Yeah, so you do that. I'm sure you see comical things all the time.
All the time, man.
And I feel like we miss out on that a lot of times in life, that we don't look for the comedy in everything. And even in sad situations, you got to find something there to latch onto.
So I'll tell you one thing about New Orleans is, yes, you see, like, you notice those things because sometimes you'll go shopping, and New Orleans is it's a place where you can be whatever you want to be at any point in time. Like, most people think Mardi Gras and they think that, costumes and stuff come out then. No. Costumes are out 24/7, really? Always. Yeah, you can, I remember the place I go grocery shopping, there's an old lady that comes in and she wears fairy wings. She just looks like a fairy every time she goes shopping. And so, you're seeing these things all day long. So it's almost like you're living in a place that doesn't really exist, like a magical kingdom.
That's kind of cool. I really want to. I always want to visit, and I'd like to visit. Maybe we can get Anna and Brock and my wife, and we'll go down there and visit and come hang out with you sometime. And
absolutely, I'll show you around the city and everything.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's a very small city, so we could see everything in a day. But there's some really cool spots in the city too that I could show you that most people don't actually see unless you live there. I
like some of what's the lady's name? And I'm drawing blanks. We talk about if I listen to podcasts and stuff. One of them I listen to is I can't think of the name of it. It's been a while.
She from New Orleans?
She's a legend in New Orleans. She's a voodoo lady.
Oh, shit. She's a podcast?
No, she don't have a podcast. No,
okay.
No, he talks about her. I'm sorry.
Okay.
He talks about her on the podcast, how she was doing voodoo, and then she never really aged because she had a daughter that looked just like her, so most people thought it was her.
Was it Marie Laveau?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I couldn't think about that. So I want to visit like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I like for you to show me around and show me all that kind of.
Yeah, no, Marie Laveau, she's a big name down there.
That was American Horror Story uses her in some of their episodes, and.
Yeah, no, they have all kinds of like tours you can go on. It's they take you to the Marie Laveau's. I think she has a cemetery. I think cemetery number 1's named after her down there because there's like all these, all the cemeteries down there are above ground because they say it's because of flooding, but it's not really what it is. But yeah, there's like 5 different cemeteries down there, and I think she's in number 1.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, dude, the really, really cool stuff down there. Such a blessing to live in a place like that. It's getting like bombarded by a hurricane right now, though. So
that's why you come down here to get away from that. Or
actually, no. I don't really look at the weather at all. I'm so busy with everything going on that most of the time I'm just like A to B, A to B always. And I was actually going into my key fob for my my building that I live in. The battery was going dead, so I went in to get it changed, and the lady was like, there's a hurricane coming in, right? And I was like, no, I didn't know there was one coming in or not. I'm leaving town today, but so I don't have anything to do with it.
You got lucky. You missed it.
I got lucky, dude. Yeah.
That's pretty. Does it do a lot of damage usually when it hits?
So like, okay, you remember when Ida came through? You remember this one? I think it was 2021 when Ida came through, and it was. I stayed there for that one, and it blew like the entire city away. When I tell you that was the most incredible thing that I saw, because the building I live in is like a concrete bunker, and I have this space. It's probably the size of the area we're in right now, but I can go out and sit on it. It's like a porch or something like that. And the wind that night when I was on it, so where were we at? 10 feet away from this area right here. That's all I could see. Everything else was just white. Like the wind was blowing so hard that if you would have tossed anything out in it, gone immediately. And I'm just sitting on the porch watching this. So, but that was a category 4. The one going through today is only a category 1, so it's like a rainstorm.
So with those kind of storms coming through a lot of times, I guess I'm ignorant to this. We had a tornado.
Yeah.
We heard about that. So it did so much damage. It took so long to rebuild. And I would imagine a hurricane coming through like that would do a ton of damage, like you said, blowing everything away. How long does it take for New Orleans to kind of bounce back?
It's pretty incredible how quick they do it. I think for us, it was about 2 months, and the power and everything was back up, fully restored. I mean, because it's not just New Orleans. Like whenever something like that happens, people come from all over to help rebuild that place. But here's my one argument that I have with the city is they don't build back anything more strong. They don't build anything stronger. So you would think that they're putting up light poles, right? Like the wooden poles here, they work fine for here. But if you're in a city where hurricanes are constantly coming through, you want to put metal poles up. That way they're not going to just fall down and break every time something comes through. They literally put just the wooden poles back up.
I wonder if there was something behind that, like economically, or if
you would think that economically it would be better to make it where it's more stable, but I think it's just people trying to do things as cheap as they can to put more money in people's pockets. Politicians, I think it's corruption is what I think it is. And I say that even with the buildings they build down there. So the building that I live in, it's an older building. So it used to be a factory. So it's all concrete. It's like a concrete bunker. But even the sides of it are curved, which makes so much sense if you live in a city where hurricanes come through. Because the wind's going to curve around the building rather than hit this like force and knock the building over. Every other building in the city is a box, except our building. So I mean, when the hurricanes come through, we don't feel anything at all.
No, you don't. So it doesn't really do a lot of damage to your building.
No, it doesn't do anything, and that's the smart way to build buildings if you live in a city where a hurricane comes through. That's
things like living in the area that I live in. As you know, I don't think about stuff like that.
Well, I mean, tornadoes are totally different. So if a tornado came through New Orleans, even the building that I live in, the tornado would probably hurt it, because I feel like if you think about a hurricane's like a really big tornado. Mm-hmm. Like it's just huge. It covers the entire city. So you're getting like the winds more spread out rather than like a consolidated force that's moving through. Yeah, I saw the devastation that tornado didn't win, and it was crazy, man.
Yeah, it did a lot of damage. That was one of the first ones I ever, being in law enforcement, having to work through.
Did your house get hit?
I got lucky.
Okay.
The only damage, I have a little shed in the back. I didn't notice that damage until a couple months later, and I didn't report it. I just went ahead and fixed it myself because it was so minor. But I was driving down, so the sirens go off, and I'm not somebody that's scared of storms. Like, right. I don't even think half of it. How often does this happen to us? Now maybe from New Orleans, you guys are more prepared for that kind of thing.
Not really.
And
but the blessing about a hurricane is you see it coming.
Yeah.
Tornadoes, you don't see them coming. Like 1 minute it's there, 1 minute it's not.
And so I get on the phone with my dad, and I'm asking what's going on, and my little boy starts freaking out. We put a football helmet on him, or a baseball helmet, and we stick him in the the storage area in our garage, to this lowest point we had. Mm-hmm. And my dad's scariest things. My dad usually is kind of like the guy that always had the answers growing up, and he said, I remember telling him, he's like, it's bad. He said, it's coming towards us. He said, I don't know what to tell you. He said, I don't know to tell you to leave or stay. He said, I don't want to tell you one thing or the other. And my dad always has an answer, So I didn't know what to do. So I just snatched my wife up, threw her in the car, and I'm driving 90 to the jail, because it's the most structured building we got in town. And we stay in there. And so when we leave, and the way the tornado was coming, I could have potentially passed it. So I was taking a chance there. But again, I didn't know. I waited too late to prepare myself.
Yeah.
And so we get there and we come back, and I go to get my police car so I can go out and help. And on the way back, I go down my street, and it's just destruction everywhere. One house is literally just half a house. Mm-hmm. And I start pulling up, and I'm just preparing myself mentally. It's going to be destroyed. My dogs are probably not going to be there anymore. And I'm mentally preparing myself. I pull up, and I don't see any damage.
Nice.
And I go through, and it's just the relief, but at the same time, the guilt. I had a little bit of guilt. Like everybody else suffered some kind of damage, or most people suffered damage. I didn't have any.
But you had the potential to help them then.
Yeah.
You're not helping yourself at that point. You can go help the other people. Yeah, luckily, everyone that I know and when, none of them actually had any major damage. So, my sister and them live in Wynn.
Okay.
And the tornado went right by their house, but it didn't hit them. And then Tyler lives over there, my best friend, and nothing really happened to his house major either. So
that's crazy.
It's crazy and it went right between them.
How much damage there was caused, and how close it got to some houses, and still didn't.
When it blew the entire school away, right?
Yeah, the school was gone. It was destroyed. The Methodist church, it was destroyed. There was so much damage.
So did you see crime rise or anything after that?
Oh yeah. So there for a while, when I was working nights, so we were putting in a lot of hours to cover. We had the National Guard down. You had, we had a lot of officers. It was crazy. You had state police everywhere. You had local communities, so different, like Hot Springs PD sent people down. You had people from everywhere coming to help and working at night. But first few days, everybody kind of came together. Mm-hmm. Well, then there's no power. People aren't working, so people got bored. Mm-hmm. So then you started seeing everybody getting drunk and acting crazy. Like the hotels were overflowing with people, and and everybody was just bored and started fighting and arguing, stealing, and it was just it was.
So what did you do in those situations? Did you take people in, or did you just have to like try to police the situation as best you could and
you try to
separate them?
That was the thing. At first, you try to be as generous as you can.
Yeah.
You try to give,
because some of these people lost everything, right?
But then when it gets so out of hand, you just start, because we had a curfew.
Yeah.
And state police finally, they said, we're going to enforce that curfew. So we then started taking everybody to jail that was outside the curfew because it was getting so out of hand.
Yeah.
Like it was getting pretty bad there for a little bit. And it's like, that's the thing about my job is where's that fine line of fairness versus, I may be fair to one person, and then when I'm fair to that person, they go off and harm somebody else because I was too fair with them.
Right.
And so like the common good of everybody, where do you draw that line on individuality versus the common good of the town?
And it's so different being in a small town rather than a city like I live in, because in a city like I live in, I might catch flack for saying this, but it's kind of lawlessness. Because like the cops have real issues to deal with, like murders and things. So when it comes to the small things, they really don't. They're like, you need to handle these things yourself. And even when Ida came through and blew the power was out, water was out, that's when you really understand that we're all just animals. Because you see people that are trying to survive. And when people start trying to survive, that's when things get hairy.
Yeah, no, and like you were talking about, I've heard some things about New Orleans where there's some areas, and I could be wrong, absolutely, some areas where the law enforcement don't really enforce those areas. Like is it Bourbon Street where you walk down, there's a certain spot where it stops off, and there's a strip where it's pretty much.
Bourbon Street, you pretty much have cops there.
Have cops there.
I say that, but I've actually, one of the only places I've ever gotten attacked in New Orleans was on Esplanade Street, which is just off Bourbon Street. A guy attacked me and tried to rob me with a broomstick. And I was like, bro, you need to have something more than a broomstick. So we had a little tussle.
So when you think of like a tourist town like that, whereas like public intoxication, we can crack down on somebody walking around just hammered drunk.
Well, that's an everyday thing in New Orleans.
Well, at what point do you draw the line there?
They don't really.
You can't.
Yeah.
It's so hard to enforce something when a lot of your money comes from tourists.
Yeah.
You don't want to keep them from showing up.
Well, like public intox down there, I mean, that's the thing that you can do.
Oh, being intoxicated?
Yeah, you can walk around with drinks. You can walk around with anything you want. Weed down there too. Like now we have, I'm sure weed's illegal. Is it illegal where and when?
Yeah, well,
would you arrest someone if they had weed?
Unless you have a medical marijuana card.
Okay. So in New Orleans, you can have a certain amount on you at all times. And we actually have THC seltzers now. So you can walk around and drink your weed in a can if you want to.
And then so like I was saying, when somebody gets so sloppy drunk they're a danger to themselves, where do you draw that line of enforcing that versus whereas here and when we don't have the population for one, or say even in Jonesboro we don't have the population for one to I don't know where I guess I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but to draw that line of enforcing, you go to Florida, like Panama City, everybody's drunk.
Right.
Where do you?
Yeah, I would say in New Orleans that I don't know anyone personally who's ever been arrested for a public intox or is there another drunken?
There's well, it depends. Each state has its own laws.
Okay, well, I've never seen anyone get arrested for that. So I don't know like how they even police that. I think unless you're like getting into a fight, and a lot of times when I've seen people fight on Bourbon Street, the cops are just like, okay, break it up. You go this way. You go this way.
Well, then they can't really get tied down. I mean,
there's too much other stuff going on.
You got stuff. I mean, the call volume is probably just just constantly. And when you get into that higher crime areas like that, where the call volume is so high that the police are so tied up that. Plus that every town is understaffed police department wise.
Yeah.
I mean, just by the kind of concept, you think of say there's a cop for every 1,000 person, that's still understaffed to control a lot of things. So especially when the crime rate gets really high.
A lot of times they let the businesses handle their own issues. Unless something like really bad happens that you need, like blood and stuff is spilled, then you need the cops called. But like a lot of times, if you're rather than actually calling the police, they let you deal with your own issues. just because they don't have the capacity to handle everything.
And so one of the beautiful things of that's written in state law, in my opinion, beautiful, is that cops have officer discretion. So I can show up and, like, say you and somebody are fighting. I can make the decision not to arrest anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can say, well, you know, it's two grown adults fist fighting.
Right.
You know, we kind of gotten away from where we encourage kids just to duke it out and go be friends, you know? And so if I see two grown adults fist fighting and it doesn't get to the point where somebody's going to be seriously hurt,
right,
then I can make that decision. But a lot of things I noticed too is how childish adults are, you know?
Especially when they're drunk.
Drunk, or you'd be surprised when they're sober. Just how childish people are. They call us to a house, and I want to press charges. And the things they want to press charges on, I'm just like, where do you think that you can? You know, like, why would you want to on something like this?
What's an example?
Well, like say, not necessarily one I've seen, but like say I walk by and I'm walking down the street and I look at you, I'm, fuck you, Kyle. I keep walking. Well, then I get a call. Hey, he cussed at me. He's harassing me. I want him arrested. I want to press the charges. I can't handle that. Or their dog came over here and shit in my yard. I want them, you know, I want something done. What
would you do in that situation?
Pacify them the best you can. I usually, you know, I take a report. I tend to go a little above and beyond on some things. I'll take a report for you. I'll try to make you feel like I did everything I could.
But there's really nothing you can do.
Essentially, there's nothing I can do.
You go talk to the person, say, "Don't let your dog shit in his yard again."
Right? Yeah, I'll go make an attempt to talk to somebody or something. And because I had a training officer that taught me when I was early on. He said the biggest thing to do, his number one rule was, don't tell anybody you can't do something for them.
Right.
So that may be the case. But you leave with them thinking you did something. Well, and no matter what that thing is, you leave the scene with them thinking that you did something for them.
It's a great advice.
And it really has got me a long way because people, even though I did nothing for you, I absolutely did nothing. I put on more of a show than anything. You walk away at some type of peace. Yeah. And less likely to call me back, or more likely to call me back, depends on who you are. But
when less likely to escalate the situation because you're like, the cops got it handled.
Yeah, they handled it. And there's absolutely nothing I could do. I didn't do anything, but it looked like I did something. And as taxpayer, I try to keep that in mind, that people fund the police with their tax dollars, and that they work hard. When you work hard and you build money and you spend your money on a product, whatever that product is, a service, you expect something out of that service, or you're going to stop spending money on that service. And I try to look at that, take that into account, that this is somebody's money that's being funded into this, and I'm some form of government. I mean, essentially. Yeah. I'm not elected, but I'm some form of government. The mayor's elected, who appoints the police chief, then who hires me. So I represent somebody, and how that person I represent, I kind of have a loyalty to, you know, if you give me a job, I kind of have a loyalty to you. You did something for me. You helped me provide for my family. So in that sense, that I don't want somebody that uses their tax money to fund the police department to look at that they got shafted, essentially. But at the same time, though, there's some people you just can't please anyway, and they're tying up that tax-funded resource that somebody else probably needs more.
Right. And they're probably people that just need a friend.
Yeah. You know, and you try to be that as best you can, while there's other people that need to see you drive in their neighborhood. Yeah. And I can't spend too much time here doing this, maybe playing basketball with somebody or just talking to you about something that I can't help you with. I can't spend a whole lot of time here, whereas somebody else needs me somewhere else.
You said something earlier, to shift back to what you said about your dad, because I think this was something really cool that I experienced too. Was you said your dad didn't have the answers. I think that's a growth thing that we all go through, a phase of growth where you realize that your parents are just humans trying to figure it out too.
Or adults are dumb. You know, that was kind of a thing that I realized as the more I'm becoming an adult. You look at as a child, you look at everything through, like, I guess, the eyes of the child, and adults seem so intelligent, so put together, you know, and somebody that's a senator, you're like, they got to be brilliant. And then you look into that senator, you're like, I'm smarter than them. They just had the capacity, or maybe the connections to get to where they're at. They're not intelligent. And then that was one of the first really moments where my dad couldn't give me advice at all. And it really, really kind of hit home, you know. There's going to be a time with my son that I don't know. I don't tell you.
Yeah, especially with the technology and the way technology is growing. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you're like, I've learned enough. And they're going to keep growing and experiencing the technology, so they're going to keep expanding their minds.
Yeah,
So.
And I feel like I'm already starting to get there with technology, you know, personally. I think like I love like the whole podcast environment. I love that aspect of it. But there's some things I just don't care to learn about technology because I feel like that I got plenty of other stuff I want to learn. A lot of places in my life or areas I want to grow in, and I feel like I'm already there. Whereas my son, who's 8, is just absorbing like you know that old adage is what we use a lot, absorbing like a sponge. Like, like he is though. I mean, he essentially is absorbing all that, and I don't know what's positive or what's negative because I'm not necessarily sure what he's looking at.
True that. Yeah, I'd say the same thing about Trinity and Rice and my niece and my nephew. Who also live in Wynn. So thank you for taking care of them. No, they are just watching shit on YouTube all the time. And it's like, what are they watching? Because my sister and them, they won't filter anything. And I'm like, you have no clue what's out there they're watching.
Well, even with filter stuff, there's so much out there that they try to get past these filters.
Yeah.
You can put it on a kid's YouTube and then you come by and next thing you know, it's something just horrible being seen. But the way they mess with the algorithm, it came across as a kid's show.
Yeah.
And one of the things I can't stand, and I understand, I see I try to see anyway, is the draw to watching somebody else play a video game. And my son's obsessed with that. And it drives me insane.
What does he like to watch play?
Or he likes Christlikeness. So I watch.
This is a person?
Yeah.
What does he play? What kind of games?
A little bit of everything.
Okay.
He's all over the place.
So there's one game that I like to watch play.
What's that?
It's Escape from Tarkov.
Okay.
But it's because I'm also an Escape from Tarkov player.
All right, so that aspect I get.
So I'm learning from the guys that are playing
You're watching something to be better at something. That's no different than me watching somebody do basketball drills, so I can go try to do his basketball drills.
Yeah.
There's no difference in that. My son would much rather watch you play a video game than him himself.
That's a touchy area to get into, because I mean I don't want to say this about your son, but there's this huge epidemic going on where boys would rather watch porn than also hang out with girls.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, they're not the same thing, but they're related.
Well, I mean, at what point as he gets older, does he not transition to that?
Right.
You know, and like that, there's so much geared to kids now that is that like a Ryan's World. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a kid playing with toys.
Okay.
Well, my son used to watch it for hours. Well, he's not playing with toys while he's watching. I had to limit that. I have to limit Christlikeness. It's we're watching other people, and I guess that's where like the AI thing kind of scares me. We're watching other people live life, and we're not living it.
Interesting. Why do you think they get enjoyment out of that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's the same enjoyment I guess we get out of movies maybe to an extent. I'm not sure. I don't understand it. I have a hard time grasping. Why are we?
So one of the guys that I watched play Tarkov, he was actually talking about this topic as well. And Escape from Tarkov is a very intense game. Like if you have anxiety, it's going to spike your anxiety, but it's also going to spike your dopamine. So it's a high and low game. And he was saying that he believes that the reason kids like to watch him play it is because it's not spiking their anxiety, because he's actually good at the game. So whenever he's playing the game, they're thinking that they're playing the game. So it's like almost like they're in his shoes and they're really good at the game.
And I can see where you're watching, especially as a young child, 8 years old, you're watching somebody play a game that you really want to play, but you don't necessarily have the motor skills or maybe the mental functioning to really play it yourself. You can play it, but you're going to struggle through it. You're going to fall off. Your kid's going to die. You're going to do this. Where this guy's smoothly going through it. It's almost like watching a movie, essentially, I guess. Yeah,
because I mean, I feel the same way when I'm actually playing the game Tarkov. My anxiety is going through the roof because there could be guys on both sides of you with guns, and you're trying to tuck into a little corner so they don't shoot you, and then you die, you lose all your gear. Right, so you're like,
you have these high stakes game.
Very, very stressful, very high stakes game. And if I'm just watching him play, he's so good at it. He just like smoothly goes around the corner and kills everyone.
I guess that stems too. Like we watch basketball. What's the appeal of watching?
I never watched basketball. I never got that.
Yeah, I mean, it's real big.
Because I love playing basketball.
Oh yeah, I was the same way. My dad used to always tell me, you got to watch to be good at it.
Yeah.
I would get bored. Like he watches golf, and I like playing golf. That's fine, but man.
But it's also a stressful game. Golf is.
It is.
So yeah, if he's watching, he's not dealing with the stress.
Yeah, but he plays a lot too. So I guess maybe that's the same thing as learning from watching. I don't know, but it's the same concept. I would imagine. We watch football. We all, like you said, the Super Bowl's coming. It's a bunch of grown men playing a sport. I'm not playing it. What am I getting out of sitting here?
Yeah, so my buddy Tyler that lives there in Wynn, he's a basketball coach. Mm-hmm. So he was saying that one of the things he's noticed with kids these days is that when they try something, if they're not immediately good at it, they put it down and never touch it again.
I see that in my son.
Yeah.
Well, we always look at our kids biasly, but my son, I feel like is fairly intelligent for his age, but in that moment that it's hard, that moment that it may not just come easy to him, shuts down, and how do you push them past that without being too hard on them? How do we solve?
Well, how did we get through that? Because you played basketball, I played basketball. There was a time when we picked a basketball and we sucked at it.
I don't know. I actually had that thought. I don't remember. Do you remember going through it?
I remember my dad pushed me. He's like, you got to get good at this. So we're going to do drills and things like this. He actually pushed me to do it. And then eventually I just fell in love with it because I was better than other people.
Well, and that's the thing, like with anything, once we get past that learning curve of something, and we get that confidence of doing it, we enjoy it more. And I think as a society, we are getting where we don't want to, like I was talking about work, how we're designed, I feel we're designed to work. We're designed to have jobs. We're designed to work at everything that we do, and because we get that satisfaction of finally getting good at something. Mm-hmm. And if you don't put the work into it, you don't get good at it. And I don't think kids are pushing past that to see. They can't see past. I blame a lot of what we're showing our kids. So my son loves to read the book Dog Man, a very popular book, but his attention span is not there. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of shows, I'll watch and I'll catch him skipping to the best parts of the shows. He has no attention span. I'm having to work on that, and I think that correlates into like sports. You don't have the attention span to get past not being good to finally getting good, and you can't see far enough into that future to see that once I get good at this, good enough to compete, it's fun.
Yeah.
And we're so now, our minds are so like right now, what we see, we can't see 10 steps ahead.
How old is your son?
He's 8.
So he doesn't do TikTok and things like that, does he?
I don't let him do it.
Okay, see, there's a neuroscientist that I follow, Andrew Huberman, and he's talking about how the TikToks and Instagrams and things like that are giving you these instant hits of dopamine over and over again when you're swiping through the algorithms. And he said that's what's actually pulling our attention spans down.
Well, see, and I've heard like stuff like that as well. And so I've looked at like books, the books that we hand kids to read now. Mm-hmm. If you ever look at them, it's very short passages, and not much happens, and then real quick, and it's all kind of like actiony though. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same thing. Even when we're handing a kid a book, he's not having to get through a chapter to actually get something out of that book. It's real quick, fast satisfaction. Yeah. And I think everything we're doing now is geared towards that.
See, I'm a horrible reader as well. The only book that I couldn't put down was the Science of Yoga book, and that was just because it was so interesting to me. Like it's something outside of the box that I never actually thought about. But when it comes to reading, I guess it's probably been about 3 years ago now, I adopted this practice where every day I'll go work out, and then I'll meditate for 15 minutes, and then I'll read one chapter of a book. And it doesn't matter what the book is, I have to read one chapter of it. And that's my practice every single day. And it takes me about an hour and a half to do like the entire thing. But that's my morning routine. And I've gotten through so many books doing that.
And that's great because you're building a foundation. Yeah. You're building.
But it's hard. Like it's one of those things where you have to do it every single day.
And that correlates with my mindset of everything is designed to be a work for us.
That's true.
Because you worked at, because people don't think about it, there's stamina that you got to build up to read. Mm-hmm. If you read 15 minutes every day, then if you try to push past that 15 minutes, you haven't read much, your eyes start hurting. Mm-hmm. You start getting tired, you don't get very far. But if you dedicate yourself to like that 10, 15 minutes a day of reading, and then next thing you know, you're reading for an hour. You read a chapter, you're staying consistent with something. And look how much satisfaction you get out of the fact you look back and you're like, man, I just read 20 books and I didn't.
Yeah, stack of books on my desk. I keep them there to remind myself.
And it feels good.
Yeah.
And I think we miss a lot of that in working in relationships and working at our job. Nothing better to me to go out and work at something and seeing a finished product and sitting back and drinking a beer and looking at that finished product.
Yeah.
You know, I'm exhausted. I'm wore out, but I look and I'm like, I did that. I accomplished that. Whether it's raking the yard, I get all the yard cleaned up. Look back, that yard looks good.
Yeah.
You know, I did that. I don't think that we focus on that enough as a society anymore, of the pleasures of work, of anything, or working at anything, and seeing that dopamine hit that you will get from seeing an accomplished product. I'm sure you get that from the podcast.
Oh, I love it, dude. Yeah.
You sit there, and I'm sure there's more work that goes into this than just me and you talking. There's a ton of work that goes into this, or everybody be doing it.
Yeah.
And so you sit back and you see a podcast that after the finished product, you're like, man, that turned out great.
Mm-hmm.
But you did it. You're the reason it turned out that way. And so that's such a good feeling.
So if you had to tell kids a message to get through that, what would you tell them?
Learn patience. You know, don't give up on something so easily that things are going to, the obstacles in life that are going to happen for whatever you want it to be. Find something that you think, can I like this in 5 years? Can I like this in a month? I may not be good at it now, but is this potentially something I could potentially like? And then work at that thing a little bit every day to see if you do like it. And then once you see that, well, hey, it's not that hard, I can do this, then find something else. And then eventually, I feel like we would, you're striving for a successful future at that point, because you're going to have to start out in a job that you don't like one day, but you're going to have to work your way until you can find that job you do like. But take each and every job as if an opportunity. Because again, everything's work, in my opinion.
It's true. Well, Bobby, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation today, and I look forward to having another one with you the next time I come around.
I'll get in trouble if I don't do this.
Yeah,
I want to give a shout out to Anna Stewart.
Okay.
For bringing us back together.
Yeah, dude.
It's been a long time, and I told her I'd give her a shout out today.
Nice, so. Yeah. You want to say anything to your kid?
Oliver, you better go home and do homework when you get out of school today, and have everything cleaned up and ready to go.
Yeah, Bobby, thank you, man.